Having half of your face smashed in was definitely the most painful thing Sakura had ever experienced. Ninjas were supposed to be strong and not let injuries break your spirit. You got injured, you kept going until you were safe, you let the medics patch you up, and then you go on as normal. And all the while you never complained. Maybe you even outright refused anesthetics to show off just how macho you were. Sakura didn't feel very macho at the moment. When the medics had come to take her away, they had also told Naruto to go away and let them handle it. Sakura didn't want Naruto to go away. She wanted her friend, she wanted her parents, she wanted people she could trust to hold her hand and tell her everything was going to be okay. Speaking was painful, so Sakura had squeezed Naruto's hand tightly and the blonde had gotten the message. "I'm staying," Naruto said. "Your friend will be fine, Uzumaki-san," the medic tried to reassure her. "And you still have your own matches to fight." If Naruto would miss her fight with Gaara because of this, then Sakura would be fine with that. At least one good thing would have come of this then. "They know where I am. I'm sure they'll come get me when it's time." Naruto's eyes briefly glowed red as she glared at the medic. Sakura liked it better when her eyes were blue. "Now stop arguing and focus on your patient, medic." Naruto's tone implied an or else. "I'll try not to get in your way, but I'm also not leaving." It should be noted that Naruto isn't actually losing control of the QB here, but is just using his power as a tool of intimidation. "Thank you," Sakura thought. She was carried onto a stretcher and taken to a nearby hospital bed. She wasn't at the actual Konoha hospital, though she would probably be moved there eventually. Injuries were expected in the tournament, so facilities had been moved so they could administer treatment as soon as possible. The first thing they tried to do was get her to swallow some kind of calcium pill, which would help them use medical ninjutsu to mend her broken bones. Problem was that Sakura couldn't move her mouth enough to swallow anything. Even breathing took a concentrated effort on her part, which meant that the medic had to manually place the pill into her throat and use water to wash it down. It tasted like blood. Probably her blood, considering several of her teeth had been knocked out. Anesthetics were offered and then the bones of her jaw were more or less puzzled back into place. And then the first chakra-based medical ninjutsu was offered in order to help the bones mend. Her face was then bandaged up, so Sakura's face looked like a mummy. Yet, in a little over half an hour, Sakura felt well enough to speak again, if she did it slowly and carefully, and didn't mind the little pain. Medical ninjutsu truly is incredible, Sakura reflected. With all of this, she'd be alright again in a matter of days instead of months. Even her lost teeth could be replaced, though that would take some work and wasn't a priority. "You can receive visitors now," one of the medics said with a sideways glance at Naruto. She hadn't let go of Sakura's hand throughout the whole procedure and Sakura couldn't be more grateful. "I'm staying until I'm called to fight," Naruto said, and from the way she looked at Sakura, it was more of a promise to her than a statement to the doctor. A good shinobi would study the competition in case they needed to fight them in later rounds. "I only care about the first round, after that I'll just quit." "A good shinobi? Well, I don't claim to be a good shinobi, just a powerful one. Now if there's anything else you need to do, well, I need to tell you to keep your voice down and make sure the patient doesn't exert herself. But other than that, no." The medic sighed, clearly deciding that arguing with Naruto wasn't worth it, and spoke to Sakura. "I'll go tell your other loved ones that they can come see you now." When the medic left, Sakura decided to address something that had been going through her head for a while now. "Naruto." Sakura spoke slowly in order to not aggravate her face. "Please don't talk, not if it hurts," Naruto said. And when Sakura ignored her, she moved closer so Sakura at least didn't need to speak very loudly. "Naruto, do you think becoming a ninja was a mistake? For all of us?" Naruto thought that question over for a few seconds and answered with downcast eyes. "Yeah, it's just not worth it. I like the training, the moving, learning the techniques. Heck, I even enjoy a good fight. But, yeah, I wish none of this had ever happened." And for the first time, Naruto wondered if not being a ninja was a choice that was ever even available to her. Whether it was available to her now. She had an impressive pedigree as a ninja, a lot of talent, and was a Jinchuriki on top of all that. It would be a huge blow to Konoha if she just decided to quit. Would Hokage just accept it if she chose a quiet life for herself? She'd like to think yes, but she didn't know for sure. It wasn't a pleasant thought. Could you stay here? Not go to your match. You're too important to risk. Sakura pleaded. Too important to me, Sakura thought. None of us are safe while he lives, Naruto said. The land of wind. He'll go back to the land of wind after this. He'll be their problem then. Sakura's heart sank when Naruto shook her head. You must have seen the way he looks at me. I doubt he'll just accept it even if I decide to run away. Which I'm sorry, I'm not going to do. Naruto forced a smile that Sakura was easily able to see through. Don't worry, there's no way Gaara can stand against my new powers. He'll die, and afterwards I'll do whatever you want. We can both stop being ninja and open a shop or something if that's what you really want. Anything. The door opened and Sakura was disappointed when it wasn't any of her friends or parents coming to visit, but an unknown man wearing a Chunin uniform. Uzumaki-san, you are expected in the arena. Already? Sometime earlier. Even when I win, I somehow still manage to lose. Hinata reflected to herself. She wanted so desperately to prove she was strong, but when she tried that against Neji, she was forced to use that abominable cursed seal. And now against Sakura, she had to rely on Orochimaru's cursed mark in order to guarantee a victory. Both times she had won, but both times she had failed in what she had set out to do. Prove to herself that she wasn't worthless. Instead, what she seemed to be proving, both to herself and probably to everyone else, was that she wasn't even a good person. Not just a failure, but a bully at best. Hinata's whole reason for fighting was so she could stop hating herself, yet it was only getting worse. Sakura fought well, surprisingly, Sasuke said after she rejoined him. She probably deserved to win more than I did, Hinata said. Nah, you're better, but I already knew that. What's surprising is not that you won, but the difficulty with which you did so. The implicit faith that statement implied in her abilities made her feel a little lighter. Sasuke, can I ask you a question? His expression told her to go on. Have you been feeling different lately? Ever since the Forest of Death? You're talking about the curse mark, Sasuke guessed. Hinata nodded. Not really. Hinata's heart sank at that answer. If she couldn't blame the curse mark, then only she was to blame. There was a long silence before Sasuke spoke again. Is this still about Neji? And Sakura, you saw the state she was in. These things happen in the heat of battle. You can't double check your own instincts in the moment. You fight to win. When you step into a fight like this, you accept that you could get injured. Sakura will recover. Mostly. Probably. I used the curse mark, Sasuke. Sasuke looked surprised, but not as alarmed as Hinata felt he should be. Was it a deliberate choice? Not exactly. I just felt like I needed to win, and I guess I used it by accident? I searched for strength within me, and it was just there. Interesting. I guess that makes it even more impressive that Sakura managed to push you that far. I cheated. She should have won, not me, Hinata said. Hinata, Sasuke said, you're being annoying. What? Your refusal to see reality is pissing me off. Even if you hadn't accidentally used the curse mark, you'd still have had the advantage, and would have won 9 times out of 10. The only reason Sakura held out as long as she did was that she held the element of surprise for a while, and that wouldn't last. You were better than her. Accept reality and move on. Sakura wasn't even a frontline combatant. And neither are you. The reason you still can't see chakra points is that you've been focusing your Byakugan on range instead of precision, so you could be a better sensor and tracker. And what about Neji? He should be here and not me. Yeah, you've got a point there, but he was being a jackass to you, so fuck him. For the first time in what felt like a long time, Hinata felt herself smile briefly, but it didn't last long. Naruto is going to kill me, Hinata said. Sad thing was, Hinata wasn't sure whether she was exaggerating or not. Then she is dumb. Sakura accepted the risks when she stepped into the ring, and she survived. No reason to make a big deal out of it. If she starts giving you grief, just tell me and I'll set her straight. But I feel like I'm not myself lately. How? Like, well, I'm talking back to my own father. About time, Sasuke said. And Hinata tried to come up with some other example that wasn't related to her family, but found that she couldn't. I've been treating my own family disrespectfully. Sasuke snorted. I believe the correct word for this is karma. It's not a curse mark. There's not a mark in existence that could turn you into a bad person. It's just you finally having had enough of your family's nonsense. I call that a good thing. So stop looking so damn guilty. It's bugging the crap out of me. And... oh good, they seem to be starting the next match. Proctor, I'd like to forfeit, Kankuro soon announced, to the immediate outrage of the whole arena. Now that is strange, Sasuke thought. Why even come all this way if you're not even going to fight? Sasuke asked. Moral support for Gaara, Kankuro shrugged. That was such an unbelievable lie it was almost comical. Or maybe I'm just trying to screw with all of you. In the end, I don't really have a stake in this. Contrary to what the proctors might want me to believe, whether I ever become a Chunin has little to do with my performance here. They don't get to decide my rank, the Kazekage does. And is the Kazekage deliberately trying to sabotage this event in order to make Konoha look bad? Shino asked. I try not to guess at the Kazekage's will, but he did sick Gaara on you. Make of that what you will, Kankuro said. And then he started walking away, to join Tamari with the other spectators. This meant that they had no choice but to declare Shino the winner by default. The bug user didn't look happy with this. Sasuke could sympathize. He wouldn't have been happy with such a win either. I guess I'm up now, Sasuke said. Good luck, Hinata said. This won't be difficult. The real challenge is expending as little energy as I can so I can still fight Naruto in the next round. What did you say? Tenten asked as she glared daggers at him. Sasuke pretended like that had been a genuine question and spoke slowly as if to a mentally challenged person. I said that this won't be difficult and that the real challenge will be fighting Naruto in the next round. Particularly if she's willing to use the Nine-Tails' power against me. What makes you so sure she'll win against Gaara? Hinata asked, ignoring Tenten as she promised painful retribution on Sasuke. While Hinata felt like avoiding Naruto in the near future, the blonde still didn't scare her more than Gaara did. She just has to, Sasuke said. Hinata didn't think that a compelling argument, but something told her it would be a bad idea to argue the point. Okay, I'd love to narrate some great battle of Tenten versus Sasuke like I, if you'll forgive the bragging for a moment, managed with Hinata versus Sakura. The thing is though, that Sasuke is right, this isn't a hard fight for him. It's not that Tenten's skill set doesn't have potential. If you can't see the value in summoning a bunch of weapons out of nothing, then you, my friend, have never watched the Fate series. The thing is though, that while I don't feel obligated to obey canon power scaling, I do use it as a sort of default guide. And Tenten gets taken out no difficulty by Tamari, and Tamari gets taken out with only a little more difficulty by Chunin exam Sasuke. So yeah, the fight goes like this. Tenten's main strategy is to keep summoning different weapons at the last moment, forcing Sasuke to guess at what he'll be up against and what range Tenten's weapons will have. It's not a bad tactic, but Sasuke isn't even willing to activate his Sharingan to deal with this. Instead, he wants to win in one move by exerting as little chakra as possible. In a moment where he's hidden from view due to hiding behind the one tree in the arena when Tenten tries to attack him with ranged weaponry, Sasuke makes a couple of genjutsu images which are able to sneak up on Tenten when her focus is on him, and that's game. "Did Kakashi teach you how to do that?" Hinata asked when he rejoined her. "No, Sakura did, just today in fact." There is a reason the Sharingan literally means the copy wheel eye. It had taken Sakura half a year of blood, sweat and tears to develop her genjutsu to that level. And with a few seconds and a single glance, Sasuke had taken all that hard work and made it his own. Sasuke knew what he had done was impolite, but more power in exchange for offending what he considered a simple acquaintance? Easy choice. When Sakura would later learn of this, it would play a part in finally breaking her of her infatuation with Sasuke. "You have my thanks, Sasuke Uchiha. I was getting tired of waiting." Gaara spoke up for the first time since they saw him today. He disappeared in a swirl of sand that flew down towards the arena. On the top of the arena? "Well, he certainly seems eager, doesn't he?" Hiruzen commented. "Understandable. Nothing at home has ever been able to challenge him," disguised Orochimaru said. "Don't you think it was wrong to enter him into these exams? It hardly seems fair to the other contestants." "Perhaps. It is true that he has no normal Genin, but then again, we did nothing you yourself didn't do. We know what the Uzumaki girl is. How is entering her into the competition any different?" "She's stable," Hiruzen said tartly. "From what I've seen, the girl is guided by her emotions. For Jinchuriki, I would hardly call that stable. In any case, this next match should be interesting for all. This is the only fight thus far where the end result is in doubt." "What do you mean?" "Don't you see? A Hyuga and an Uchiha, both fighting ninjas that don't come from a powerful bloodline, nor do they even have secret clan jutsus. The Harano girl made a good showing, I'll grant you, but the outcome was never in doubt." "I'm afraid I must disagree. Of my 3 students, the Sannin, 2 of them didn't come from any great lineage, yet they both became incredibly powerful." "Ah, but did their lineage truly not matter? Or did they succeed despite that disadvantage? How strong would they have become had they been lucky enough to be born into power? Take the Harano girl for example. She made a good showing, yet for all her efforts she could not overcome the advantage of being born into greatness. How much higher could she have reached if she had the same advantages as the Hyuga girl?" "I'm afraid we will still have to disagree on this point, Kazekage Dono. If you aren't born into power, that is certainly an extra difficulty. I may even grant you that you're limited in comparison to some. Yet those same limits give rise to much creativity. Too often ninjas from powerful clans simply allow the gifts they are born with to carry them forward. In any case, can I count on your aid if the next fight gets out of hand? I am sure I don't need to tell you just how badly this can go." "Of course," Orochimaru lied. Back with Sakura. Sakura tried to sit up the moment it was clear Naruto was about to leave. Naruto looked at her. "You need to stay in bed." "No," Sakura said. "You were told not to exert yourself." There was a lot Sakura wanted to say to that, but talking hurt, so she simply said again, "No." Naruto called for the doctor, who was also accompanied by her parents. "I trust you'll keep her here?" "No," Sakura said again, fearing that if Naruto left now she might never see her again. She tried to get out of bed, but the doctor forced her to lie down again. Her parents tried to whisper sweet reassurances to her, but Sakura wasn't in the mood for it. Ino, Naruto and her had been closer than most sisters, almost for as long as Sakura could remember. Now, one of them was gone, and Sakura would be damned if she was stuck in a bed while the one Sakura had left was about to enter a fight that could cost her her life. Sakura knew there was nothing she could do, But to just sit here lying in ignorance while Naruto was fighting for her life? Not a chance. Naruto tried to put on a brave smile for her. Don't worry, when next you see me, everything will be better. And then, after her parents told Naruto to be careful, she was gone. And Sakura was being held down by meddlesome medics and overly worried parents. As Naruto is walking towards the arena, she reflects on the conversations she'd had with Jiraiya this past week. The annoying man hadn't given up after treating her to ramen that one time. Naruto had run into him on several other occasions. When she was walking home, he just happened to be traveling in the same direction. When going for groceries, he was also there. Naruto wasn't stupid, and even an idiot would be able to tell that these weren't coincidences. At each of these meetings, he took the time to lecture her on why what she was doing was bad. Why she should try to fully understand her enemy before trying to take justice into her own hands. To understand just why things were the way things were, amongst a host of other things. And, though Naruto hated to admit it, she thought the man did have a point. Or at least Naruto herself was curious. If there was some special reason or some special motive that led to Ino's death, Naruto wanted to know it. And so she resolved to at least make an honest attempt at trying to understand Gaara. Naruto doubted anything he could say would ever be enough to dissuade her from literally tearing him apart. But at least she'd be able to say she tried. Her escort stayed behind at the arena's inner entrance, after wishing her good luck, and then Naruto was walking into the stadium. Gaara was already there, patiently waiting for her. The proctor had already finished talking up the contestants. You should both already know the rules, but I will repeat them anyway so there are no excuses, the proctor said, looking from Naruto to Gaara. If I say the fight is over, the fight is over. Any violence from either of you after that point will result in worse consequences than merely being disqualified. Am I clear? He again looked from Gaara to Naruto, clearly waiting for some verbal acknowledgement. Gaara and Naruto both said they understood, though neither thought they would actually heed that rule. Gaara knew the Sand Village was minutes away from declaring war on the Leaf, and then this silly tournament and its rules wouldn't matter. He could kill every Leaf ninja in the stadium, and he might even be praised for it. And to be honest, he probably wouldn't care even if the invasion wasn't happening. Naruto simply thought that she would accept being branded a criminal if doing so would finish Gaara off for good. If her own village would judge her for that, she'd wear that martyrdom with pride. Begin! The proctor yelled, but neither Gaara nor Naruto moved to attack, though they both observed each other for any sign of incoming attack. There would be no catching either of them off guard. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you something, Naruto said. I will answer, if you will answer a question of mine afterwards. Very well. Then answer me this. Why did you kill Ino? Gaara cocked his head. What an odd question. Why question that which is normal? Bees sting, the winds blow, and monsters like me kill. You admit yourself that you're a monster. Of course. I came into this world by taking the life of the mother who gave birth to me. And my father sealed the one-tailed Shukaku inside of me. I was born a monster. I was born the ultimate weapon. But I was considered too powerful to be controlled. So I was discarded, and my own creators tried countless times to have me killed since then. And then I asked myself, why am I alive? For the longest time I couldn't think of an answer. Nobody wanted me. I was an isolated existence, and an object of hatred. Gaara never lost his monotone, despite the sad tale he was speaking. Naruto wanted Gaara to get to the point quickly or just shut up. His words reminded her of a time in her life that she never wanted to think about ever again. For the first time, a smile found its way across Gaara's face. I found my answer inside of the relief of killing someone, within the knowledge that you no longer need to fear or experience that person's hate again. And with each death, I felt just a little more alive. And so, I made that my reason for being. I exist to kill. And so for as long as there are people in this world for me to kill, I will continue on. If the world rejects my existence, then I shall kill the very world itself. But what of Ino? She never did anything to you! If a person doesn't hate me, that simply means that they don't know who and what I am. She would hate me, as everyone does, once she knew the truth. That reason is more than enough. Naruto had and still wanted to kill Gaara to avenge Ino, and to protect the world from Gaara. Right now she started to think that killing Gaara might also just be a mercy to Gaara himself. Now that I have answered your question, I demand you answer one of mine. Ask, why are you not like me? Why should I be? You carry a demon inside of you, just like me. I am curious, do they hate you as well? Why are you not like me? Ha! You're right. Many people do hate me. But just because I host a demon doesn't make me a monster. Your demon doesn't make you a monster either, Gaara. You are a monster by your own choice. And with those words, for the first time she saw a flicker of genuine anger appear in Gaara's eyes. And I'm going to put a stop to it. Gaara grinned at her. You think you are the first voice to cry for my death? I will silence it, as I've done countless times before. From the gourd on Gaara's back and from the very stones of the arena itself, sand began to emerge. After this, everything will be better again, Naruto prayed. This is the day of destiny, Naruto. Now call upon my power. She heard the QB say to her. She obliged, and a dim aura of red chakra began to surround her. Immediately, she was forced to jump away to avoid a small wave of sand. First things first. Let's see how his sand holds up against my new speed and power, Naruto thought. And so she started to test the limits of Gaara's sand. First by straight up trying to punch through it, which didn't work. At least not without drawing even more power from the QB. Then by trying to outspeed it, which did hold some success. Alright Gaara, let's see you trying to keep up with this. And what follows very closely resembles the initial clash between Gaara and Weightless Lee that we all remember, if with a bit more feral movements from Naruto. Up in the stands, Asuma was gauging the reaction of the public. As he had feared, many were having a low-key panic attack. Many of these people had been alive when the QB attacked, and it was impossible to mistake the power radiating from Naruto as coming from any other origin. A large part of him feared that after this fight was over, whatever the outcome, a lot of the hatred towards Naruto in the village would increase. If you feared that the QB could exert influence over the girl, this would not reassure you. They aren't human, was going through a lot of people's minds. Asuma had warned Naruto of this, but she hadn't cared. Or rather hadn't cared enough. You better finish this quickly, girl. The longer people have to see you like this, the worse it'll be. Down in the arena, there was not a snippet of doubt in Naruto's mind that if she wasn't using the QB's power, she'd have been dead in the first minute. Gaara had control over sand, and even stone was in essence sand of a larger size. It seemed to take Gaara a little bit of effort, but he could break down the stone beneath her feet into sand to then use it as a weapon against her. It was almost like fighting the arena itself. She'd come close several times to hitting her opponent and managed it once. After all, she was faster than the sand, so it was possible to maneuver around it. Gaara's response to this after being hit at one time was a veritable whirlpool of sand constantly swirling around him. This also blocked their vision of each other, but Gaara had this weird eye thingy floating in the air that allowed him to see over the hazard. I've never seen Gaara fight like this, Tamari thought from the stands. He's taking this Uzumaki seriously as an enemy, like he's never done with anyone else before. She knew Gaara had been anticipating this fight ever since it had been announced a month ago. To him, this was like fighting a mirror version of himself, so it made sense. After all, the only one Gaara really respected was himself. He'd even trained these last few weeks, something she couldn't recall him ever having needed to do before. Several waves of sand congregated towards Naruko's position, cornering her so she couldn't just dodge as she had been doing.
Then just use more power,
the Ninetales said inside of her mind. Naruko listened and pulled on the near infinite reservoir of power within her. The red aura around her grew denser until a single tail of chakra appeared behind her. She still couldn't dodge, there was no room, so she tackled forward and slammed through the wave of sand. It felt like she had just smashed headfirst through several inches of concrete, but she did manage to get through. At this point, the organizers were having a mite bit of trouble keeping all the spectators calm. Even those who weren't censors could feel the power radiating from Naruko, and the malice it held. Even many of the ninjas present were unnerved by this fight. The speed and power being displayed here was obviously inhuman in nature. There were probably only a small handful of adult ninjas present in the arena, including Orochimaru, that could even compete with what was being shown here. Many people thought that it was simply wrong for these two to be allowed to compete in these exams. Sasuke realized that if Naruko won this fight and he ended up fighting her next, he wouldn't be able to do anything if she chose to use this same power against him. It was infuriating. The evil nature of it didn't bother him. He was just jealous he couldn't do something like this himself. Naruko continued her dash forward and the sand surrounding Gaara seemed to coalesce into a giant dome. When she approached it, tendrils of sand shot forward like spears. Not willing to halt her attack, she only partially dodged the tendrils of sand, but whatever wounds they inflicted quickly healed. Naruko tried to smash through the dome like she did with the wave of sand from before, but it held firm against her. Two giant hands of chakra spread out from her. They balled into fists and began relentlessly beating on the dome. The dome didn't break, but the whole arena did start to shake from the tremors. It was enough that to many, the instinctual desire to be as far away from this tainted power overrode their desire to keep watching this spectacle. Upon noticing that people were about to leave, the signal to begin the attack on Konoha was given. Back with Sakura. After a while, it was easy to forget just what kind of monster rests inside of Naruko. Sakura's father, Kizashi Haruno, said. Sakura did her best to glare at her father, or rather, increased hostility in the glare she was already giving him for keeping her trapped in his bed. Oh, don't look at me like that. We know Naruko is a sweet girl, but we just wish she wouldn't use this power. It's too dangerous. Sakura couldn't exactly disagree with that. Sakura wasn't a censor in any way, yet even she could feel the corrosive feel of the Kyuubi's chakra from where she was now. But that just meant she had to reach Naruko even more. What she'd do afterwards, Sakura didn't know. But Naruko was the best person Sakura knew, and to know that she was the source of this dark power. She just had to do something! One good thing about being stuck in this bed was that the bed covers made it relatively easy to make hand signs without anyone noticing. I'm sorry, Sakura thought, and then she caused her genjutsu butterflies to stealthily make contact with her parents as well as the doctor in the room. For as long as the genjutsu was undiscovered, they'd continued to think that she was stuck in the bed, trying and failing to escape. So now, moving carefully so as not to aggravate her wounds even more, she got out of bed and started moving back towards the arena. Moving carefully was difficult since the very ground beneath Sakura's feet was shaking from the battle between Naruko and Gaara. Soon she heard the sounds of battle becoming more distinct. Part of it was obviously the epic clash between Naruko and Gaara, but some of it just didn't fit. It also seemed to be coming from everywhere. Once Sakura reached the entrance to the stands, she had to pause due to the sheer impossibility of what she was seeing. Sakura had arrived at the site of a massacre. The audience was being attacked by enemy ninja. Being comprised mostly of civilians, they couldn't defend themselves. Whatever Konoha ninjas were present were doing their best to draw the enemy's attentions to themselves and protect everyone, but it wasn't easy. There were just too many vulnerable targets everywhere, and the Sound Ninja's orders had been clear. Do as much damage and cause as much chaos and death as you can. Sakura had never seen so much death, and she also couldn't see the Hokage anywhere. Naruko, meanwhile, was still beating on the dome of sand with ever-increasing ferocity. Again, Sakura wasn't a censor, but she got the impression that the red aura around her was growing thicker every second. Sakura was coherent enough to realize the danger she had walked into, especially considering her injured state, and did her best to hide and draw as little attention as possible. With Naruto,
Just draw more power from me and you can break that shell with ease.
Naruto heard the QB speak in her head. At this point, Naruto had already pulled more power from the seal than she had ever used before in practice. With her current level of force, she felt the shell Gaara had created budge and give, and little cracks had started to appear on its surface, but it did not break outright.
That this little wall of sand can stop you when you're using my power is embarrassing. Draw more power from the seal and crush this thing!
The QB yelled. Naruto didn't want to use more of the QB's power than she had to, and she felt that with time, she could break the shell even with her current level of power. But then the shell split open of its own accord, and what emerged didn't look like Gaara anymore. Naruto jumped back as two giant arms of sand came towards her. They looked like the same version of sand that the shell from before was made out of, so she probably wouldn't be able to rush through it like before.
He looks like a miniature version of Shukaku,
the QB said. Is this his full power then? Naruto asked.
No, his true form is much larger.
As Naruto created some distance, only then did she notice the war zone her surroundings had become. What is all this?
I do believe your village is being invaded,
the QB noted with a hint of amusement.
It is of no concern to you right now. Just focus on your enemy and draw more power from me to crush him utterly.
Uzumaki! She heard another voice cry, the proctor from the match who was currently fighting Baki, Gaara's Jonin sensei. If you can, take your battle with Gaara out of the village. All of Jiraiya's warnings about what might happen if two Jinchuriki went full berserk on each other in the middle of Konoha came back to her. Gaara! Baki yelled. Do not leave Konoha! Complete your transformation and do it here! The creature Gaara had become didn't respond verbally, but Naruto got the impression he was increasing in size. This is bad, Naruto thought, and ignored the QB's insistence to just fight Gaara here and get it over with. The proctor was right. She had to get him out of the village. She remembered the flicker of emotion she had sensed in him when she said he was a monster by his own choice. Gaara, did you know that we could have been friends? Naruto yelled. What nonsense is this, Uzumaki? Gaara responded. We could have been friends. Despite what you think, not everyone will think you are a monster because of what's inside of you. I am proof of that. Ino knew about the demon inside of me, and she accepted me even so. She would have accepted you too. But then you killed her. You're a monster not because of what you are, but because of what you've done. Shut up! You know nothing! Gaara growled at her. You think killing will fill the emptiness in your heart? Don't make me laugh. Only love can do that. But you rejected that. You've rejected others, and now the whole world wants you dead, and it's right to think so. Instead of knowing love, you will die alone, Gaara, and it's all your own fault. Just shut up! Even if you win, you'll always be alone, and... Naruto was cut off as Gaara charged at her. Excellent, Naruto thought and fled, leaving the stadium in just 2 jumps. She continued to charge in a straight line towards Konoha's nearest exit, and enraged Gaara close on her heels. Back in the stadium... Damn it! Baki growled. Tamari, Kankuro, get Gaara and direct him back here. Tamari didn't know how in the blazes they were supposed to convince an enraged Gaara to ignore his current opponent to focus on ravaging the village. But all the same, she and Kankuro set in to chase after Naruto and Gaara. Hidden somewhere in the stands, Sakura had seen Naruto leave and cursed her injured state. She wanted to follow Naruto, and she still planned to, but she needed to be very careful. She was in no state to exchange blows with anyone right now, and the whole arena seemed to have turned into a war zone, and she could hear fighting from outside the arena as well. Well, Sakura reflected that she was essentially a support Kunoichi. That meant that if she ever got into a direct fight with someone, that was already a sign that she had screwed up somewhere, injured or not. Her previous fight with Hinata hadn't allowed anything but a direct confrontation, but right now Sakura was able to sneak through the arena, going from cover to cover, until she reached the exit. Every protocol that Sakura had carefully memorized told her that she was making a huge mistake. That in this time of crisis, she was supposed to report to her direct superior, namely Asuma. But Sakura didn't care. If Naruto was lost to her, then it wouldn't matter to Sakura if Konoha burned down. Sakura was no tracker and feared it would be hard to follow Naruto and Gaara. But that didn't turn out to be a problem. Gaara, in his haste and fury to follow and kill Naruto, hadn't paused for anything, and pushed entire buildings out of his way in his chase. Sakura merely had to follow the path of destruction. Back with Naruto.
You've gone far enough! Now stop running and face your enemy!
Naruto heard the QB say for what felt like the 10th time. After ignoring his advice so often, you'd think he'd stop offering his opinion, but no. That said, he had a point that they had gone far enough. As Naruto looked at her enemy, however, she had no idea how she was supposed to bring him down. Gaara hadn't paused his transformation during their run out at the village, and by now he looked like the full Shukaku, and was larger than any building Naruto had ever seen. She had no idea how she was supposed to fight something that big.
Just draw more power from the seal and he won't be able to stand against you, no matter how big he is.
Seeing no other option, Naruto did just that, and a second tail appeared from her cloak of chakra. During training, Naruto had built up some sort of immunity to the corrosive influence of the QB's chakra, but this amount still started to burn at her skin. Let's end this, Naruto thought, and charged at the giant tanuki Gaara had turned into. His skin of sand was hard, but nothing Naruto in her current form couldn't overcome. The real problem was that every time she cut off a piece of his skin, he regenerated.
Shukaku is made entirely of sand. You won't defeat him by inflicting superficial damage like this. You still need more power.
Naruto was reluctant to pull more power from the seal, considering how painful her current form already was to maintain. But she indeed didn't seem to be getting anywhere. They were at a stalemate. Gaara, or Shukaku, or whatever he was now, tried to kill her by throwing wind bullets, trees, or trying to stomp her or grab her with tendrils of sand. All without success. Naruto was simply too fast for anything Gaara tried to have any hope of catching her. And to be honest, it was doubtful it could kill her even if he could hit her. She was small, but in raw strength, Naruto had already surpassed Shukaku with her 2 tails worth of power. But Naruto couldn't damage Gaara either. Every time she blew out a portion of the giant tanuki, the sand just came back and regenerated him like nothing had happened. As it looked now, this battle might turn into a contest of who could maintain their demonic form the longest.
There is no need for that. Once you reach a certain threshold, you will gain access to some of my abilities. Once you do, you can destroy him so thoroughly he won't be able to recover.
How much more power do I need?
A little over twice what you're using now should do it,
the QB said. And I'll really be able to take him out instantly then? Naruto asked. Naruto couldn't see him, but she somehow knew the QB was grinning.
He won't stand a chance.
So be it, Naruto thought, and pulled more and more power from the seal. A third tail appeared, and it felt like her body was on fire. Working through the pain took so much concentration that it left her unable to move. Gaara tried to take advantage by grabbing her in his giant hands. But the sand out of which she was made started to melt and turn into glass upon contact with her. He tried to squeeze the life out of her regardless, but when Naruto roared from the pain and some new base primal instinct, the giant 1500 feet tall Shukaku was sent flying. When Naruto appeared again from out of Shikaku's hands, she was hardly recognizable anymore. Her chakra was so thick and heavy her skin and clothes couldn't be seen under it. The crimson red chakra flowed over her almost like fur, and her eyes and mouth glowed a ghastly white. The sense of power and danger from her could be felt from all the way over to Konoha. Naruto was about to ask the QB what she was supposed to do now. Her skin felt like it was on fire, and she wanted to end the fight quickly so she could get out of his form. But then Naruto realized she already knew what she was supposed to do. She had no idea how she knew, but she did. She pulled more power from the seal, but instead of infusing it in her body, she allowed it to gather in a sort of ball of power in front of her. As soon as she fired this attack, she hoped to finally be able to put this shitty chapter of her life to a close. She listened to the Cubie's advice on just how much power she needed, and then she launched her attack, and Shukaku disappeared into a giant explosion. Is it finally over? Naruto wondered. Too impatient for the smoke to clear, she literally roared the smoke away. Gaara was still there, but his Shukaku form had disappeared. He looked like a young red-headed boy again, a very injured boy who was trying to crawl away from her. Not yet, Naruto thought, and began to draw more power from the seal for a second attack. It was at this moment that Temari and Kankuro arrived on the battlefield. Gaara had lost, that was obvious to both of them. And it was also obvious that he was about to die. Neither Temari nor Kankuro had anything that could even approach making a difference against the monster Naruto had become. All the same, Temari jumped down towards Gaara and pulled him upright, supporting his weight with her shoulder. Kankuro cursed but joined Temari. Gaara looked at his sister in confusion. Why? You're so weak. There is nothing you can do. Why choose such a pointless end to your life? Gaara knew there was no way they could help him flee from the superior demon child. Because you're our little brother, Temari said. Gaara's eyes were wide as he looked at her. It's a bit late for him to realize there are people that care about him, Temari thought. The power radiating from Naruto was so strong her legs were shaking and she could barely move. They couldn't get away. As Gaara had said, it was a pointless end. They couldn't save him. All the same, looking at Gaara's eyes, he looked at her as if she was some kind of mythical fairy. Temari couldn't bring herself to think it a mistake. Kankuro held her hand and they gave up trying to get away. Instead, they looked at the implement of their destruction. Then, from all around them, sand began to gather and move between them and Naruto. Gaara's automatic defense, Temari thought. It wouldn't work. This attack was going to be too strong to be stopped by something like this. She doubted anything existed that could stop this. Then, the sand slowly began to take shape. A humanoid shape that looked vaguely feminine. Temari's eyes were transfixed as she stared at the figure. It evoked a feeling in her from her childhood that she could barely recall. She had been too young to properly remember, but somehow, she knew what this was. Mummy? Temari whispered, and then Naruto fired her attack. The figure of sand before them spread her hands, shielding the three sand siblings behind her. Temari's entire world shook and she was forced to close her eyes due to the blinding light. She could feel the heat of the blast all around her, but it was merely uncomfortable and didn't truly hurt her. When the world stopped shaking and the smoke cleared just a bit, Temari saw that the figure of sand had been transformed entirely into glass. Her surroundings were almost entirely reduced to ash, with only a small cone of safety existing behind the now glassy figure. A small rock that must have been blown loose by the explosion fell and impacted Gaara's face, leaving a small yet bleeding scratch wound. That was something his automatic defense should have protected him from. There was still plenty of sand all around them, so that shouldn't be an issue. Gaara seemed to have the same idea and poked his own skin with a kunai. There was no sand to stop him from injuring himself and he hissed in pain. Whatever had just happened, it seemed to have cost Gaara his automatic shield of sand. Temari's mind was paralyzed as she considered the implications of what this meant. Snap out of it! We're not out of danger yet! Kankuro yelled at her. We need to go! The smoke was still thick enough that they might be able to sneak away, and they quickly attempted just that. They fled deeper into the forest, away from Konoha. Let someone else deal with that mess. Their mission had failed. The smoke, however, did not protect them, as Naruto's roar simply blew it away again. Yet when she tried to gather power for a third attack, she found that she couldn't. The pain had also stopped. In fact, she felt nothing anymore. She couldn't move. What do I do now? She asked the Ninetales. They are getting away!
Now you do nothing.
Suddenly she wasn't in the real world any longer, but standing in front of the Cubie's cage. Though standing wasn't the right word for it. The water that had always covered the floor had risen to the point where Naruto's feet could barely touch the floor. and she was left drifting in the water. "What is this?" Naruto yelled.
I think I've let you act the part of the perfect Jinchuriki for long enough, don't you think?
The Kyuubi said as he grinned at her. "What are you saying?"
Today is the day, little girl. The day of destiny. The day where I take my revenge on your father and your bitch of a mother, and the first Hokage by ending their legacy and undoing all their works. Today is the day, little girl. Today is the day.
And in the real world, the miniature Kyuubi turned around, ignoring the Sand siblings and heading back into the direction of the Hidden Leaf village. And that's where we're going to leave things for now. Nikes out.